Robinson Crusoe. Just hearing the name paints a picture, doesn't it? You can almost see it. A lone survivor, a deserted island. It's the ultimate story of human resilience. It's a tale we all feel like we know.
I mean, ever since Daniel Defoe published it way back in 1719, it's pretty much been the cornerstone of adventure stories. It's even considered one of the very first novels in English. And it felt so real that, get this, many of its first readers actually thought it was a true story.
Okay, so let's dig into that, because the true story that inspired the legend is, in a lot of ways, even more wild. It doesn't start with a tragic storm, but with a calculated and almost instantly regretted decision.
First things first, let's just do a quick refresh on the fictional hero we all think we know. The character of Robinson Crusoe is that pious, incredibly resourceful guy who gets shipwrecked and basically becomes master of his own island. You know, Defoe's character is this powerful symbol of self-reliance. He's the man who, through sheer ingenuity and his faith, manages to tame the wilderness. He really captured the spirit of his time. And this is really the key to the book's power. Defoe's genius was his incredibly detailed, almost journal-like style. He made it so believable that the line between fact and fiction just completely vanished for his audience. But the actual facts? Well, they belong to a totally different man. And this is where our story really kicks off. The real guy wasn't some pious hero, but he was a survivor, and his story is, you could argue, way more compelling than the one he inspired. So, meet Alexander Selkirk. By all accounts, this guy was a real piece of work. The sources call him a misbehaving hothead. He was known for getting into brawls, and was even in trouble with his church back home in Scotland for fighting with his own father and brothers. Yeah, this was not a man looking for quiet contemplation. So look at this, because this is the most important difference. Crusoe was shipwrecked, a victim of fate. Selkirk, he chose to be left behind. He was on a privateering ship and got into a huge fight with his captain, convinced the ship wasn't seaworthy. So he demanded to be put ashore, probably thinking other guys would join his little mutiny. But nobody did. Imagine that feeling. As the ship sails away, sheer terror hits him. He starts screaming, begging to be taken back, but it was too late. His own stubborn pride had just sentenced him to who knows what. So let's trace what happened. He's dropped on the island in October 1704. For the first few months, he's just crippled by despair and loneliness, doing nothing but scanning the horizon for a ship. But eventually, that survival instinct kicks in. He teaches himself to hunt wild goats by literally running them down on foot. He befriends feral cats to protect him from giant rats that were gnawing on him in his sleep. He builds 2 huts. When he's finally picked up in 1709, after 4 years and 4 months, his story becomes a massive sensation in London. A decade later, Daniel Defoe gets wind of it and spins that story into literary gold.
For the longest time, Selkirk's ordeal was just that, an amazing story passed down through the years. But not that long ago, everything changed. The legend suddenly became grounded in cold, hard physical proof.
And the evidence they found is incredibly specific. Archaeologists digging on the island, which is now actually named Robinson Crusoe Island, found post holes that perfectly matched the historical descriptions of his 2 shelters. But the smoking gun, the thing that just seals the deal, was a pair of navigational dividers. These were specialized tools that would have belonged only to a ship's navigator, which was exactly Selkirk's job. This discovery confirms it beyond a shadow of a doubt. He was there.
So Selkirk's survival story was amazing enough. But his story didn't stop when he got rescued. Nope, it planted a seed in the culture that grew into this huge, powerful, and surprisingly controversial idea. And it's all thanks to one single line of poetry. In 1782, a poet named William Cowper wrote The Solitude of Alexander Selkirk, imagining what was going on in the castaway's head, and this brilliant opening stanza just captured a feeling that would echo for centuries. It turned a lonely sailor's struggle into this grand declaration of absolute ownership and total isolation.
I am monarch of all I survey. I mean, the line was just too perfect. It became this cultural shorthand, a quick way to express a feeling of complete and total control. But its meaning was not set in stone. It would soon be adopted, twisted, and fought over by all sorts of different groups for very different reasons. So let's follow the journey of this one phrase and see how it became a battleground for huge ideas about colonialism, freedom, gender, and even what it means to be an artist.
In its original context, and for a long time after, the line was totally wrapped up in the age of empire. It perfectly captured that colonial mindset, right? The idea that to see a land, to survey it from a ship or a hilltop, was to possess it. It's the ultimate expression of an explorer's claim.
But then came the resistance. This is from an abolitionist newspaper in 1842. They took the famous phrase and changed just one word, from all to not, which means nothing. I am monarch of naught I survey. It's absolutely brilliant. They turned the phrase on its head, making it a devastating critique of slavery. It became the voice of an enslaved person, a monarch who owned nothing, not even their own body.
A century and a half later, the line was examined through a feminist lens. The scholar Mary Louise Pratt argued that this whole monarch's gaze is fundamentally gendered. She sees it as a metaphor for a patriarchal view of the world, where the male explorer possesses the passive, feminized landscape.
And finally, we have the artistic take. Nobel laureate Derek Walcott saw the phrase as expressing the two sides of being a creative person. For an artist, there's that incredible power of creation. You're the monarch of your own world. But then there's the other side, the profound loneliness that so often comes with it.
It's really kind of amazing when you think about it. It all started with Alexander Selkirk's angry, impulsive choice on a remote beach. That gets turned into a novel, which inspires a poem. And a single idea from that poem splinters and evolves, helping to shape how we talk about some of the biggest issues out there.
So I guess it leaves us with this final thought. What does that phrase mean to you? If you were the monarch of all you surveyed, would you feel that thrill of freedom and control, or would you feel the crushing weight of being completely and utterly alone? The answer, just like the real story of Alexander Selkirk, is probably a lot more complicated than it first seems.